Records are always fun to talk about.
The Maah Daah Hey 100 is one of the hardest backcountry mountain bike races in America. But the course record is likely the most legendary thing that you've never heard of.
The Maah Daah Hey record right now, as it stands, is so respectable and is something that's not going to be easy for someone to take down.
Anytime there's talk of a record, I think a lot of people's ears perk up, and they're like, record? And this record in particular is kind of it's like a long time to do 106 miles.
The Maah Daah Hey king, Kelly Magelky, who reigned over this race for nearly a decade, has retired. So who's gonna fight for the crown?
You're shooting for the course record. Go ahead and come on, line up in the front.
Hey y'all, welcome to the South.
I'm Gordon Wadsworth. I'm from Roanoke, Virginia.
One of the names that has been floating around for a long time is Gordon Wadsworth. He's got a nickname, Quadsworth, if that tells you anything. And he also has a friend, Thomas Turner, who also has a nickname, the Hitman.
Gordon, are you guys gunning for a record this year? His exact words were, if you go chasing rabbits in the dark, you might get lost. So I think he knew that there was a possibility that they would do it.
The incrementally closer you get to, more risk-taking behavior on a race like this, the closer you also inch towards disaster, right? Again, nutritional disaster, mechanical disaster, all these things. So it is, I think if you go out planning on shooting a bear, you're gonna come up skunked. A big passion of mine for my entire racing career has been 100-mile mountain bike races. And this has been on that sort of landmark bucket list of races to get to. The Maah Daah Hey has this reputation for being one of the sort of truest backcountry mountain bike races, and that's, there's not a lot of those. And this is one that sort of had to happen. So this year, Nick reached out, as he's done many years in the past, because he's an incredible human, and he kind of said, man, hey, what is it? You guys, you got to make it to the Maah Daah Hey this year.
I'd heard about it probably in the late 2000, like 19 or something. And I've always seen the pictures from the race, and I always thought, man, that looks spectacular. It was always in the back of my mind, and it's so far, I was like, logistically, it could be kind of tricky.
Yeah, the logistics of the Maah Daah Hey have always been kind of a barrier for me coming to do it. One, because it is far away, it's remote. It's a point to point. A lot of these things stack up to how am I gonna put that together?
And then when Gordon talked to me about it, I was like, yeah, we could make this into a pretty cool adventure. And I didn't have a really good understanding what I was getting myself into. I know Gordon had talked to Kelly, and so I talked to Gordon. So I had some secondhand knowledge.
My name is Kelly Magelky. I am the 5-time winner of the Maah Daah Hey 100 and the current record holder. Gordon and I did have a little communication before the Maah Daah Hey 100, and I gave him everything. I was just like, hey, here's what has broken me in the past. Here's what I would look out for. Here's what you're probably not thinking of, and also just gave him some encouragement. Again, it's the right thing to do, and it's really what I love about this sport. I mean, it's just nothing but a love fest. I mean, when you're out there racing, you want to beat each other up and put each other through as much pain as possible. But But I really wanted Gordon to be successful, and I wanted Thomas to be successful.
His communication about, like, one, how hot and windy it can be, cemented that. You know, races build a reputation off of hype. A lot of times we say that the riding in Pisgah is not that hard, they just say that to sell t-shirts. The riding in Pisgah can be that hard, but so there's a little bit of like, how do I weed through what all the people say about this just to sell t-shirts, you know, like, and so when Kelly really said a lot of the same things that everybody else said, it was kind of like, okay, those are legit things. Those are legit concerns and legit issues. The fact that Kelly mentioned so many of the things that you do hear from everybody else was like, it put them in ink, you know, to me, and it was like, okay, these are real considerations.
I have a bit of a complicated feeling about holding the record because on one hand, truthfully, I am excited for someone to come break it. I mean, it's just going to further the story. It's going to happen. I mean, there's no way it's not, right? So at the same time, it's fun to have the record time. What I was a little concerned about is that somebody coming up there and breaking the record and destroying it, because I do hear a lot of chatter about like, why does it take so long? Like, there's no way, like, I'm gonna do that in like 7 hours or under, you know? And part of me was like, maybe somebody will come up and do that. And, you know, part of me was like, maybe Gordon and Thomas, I mean, they're working together, the weather wasn't too bad, you know, man, what if they just go and destroy it? And all this conversation about how hard the trail is just goes out the window, you know?
We had the idea, but we weren't really sure. I'm not really familiar with Kelly, so I didn't know. And I know Gordon, you know, he'll have some really good days.
In that same vein, like, Kelly and I had raced together enough that I knew he was a hardy dude. I knew he was up for it. I also kind of thought I was faster than him. So there was this little bit of like, okay, Kelly's, you know, he's got the record. I know the circumstances of that because there's a whole documentary on it. It's like, I think we can probably get it. Like, I think we can get the record up there. Like, you know, things fall in line and the luck lines up a little bit. I think we can do it.
You don't know what you're gonna get when you go out there. You might get a headwind, you might get a tailwind, you might get a year where there's been rain and erosion, you might get a year where it's picture perfect and it's like riding the enchanted highway out there. And you better make the most of that year because it's not going to come very often.
The weather that morning was 65 degrees with a wind out of the north at 17 miles an hour. The high was only supposed to get to 85 degrees, so if they were looking for that perfect day, it was here.
If you can try to control this beast and try to get on that thing and try to ride it in such a way that you're getting from point A to point B fast and in record time, like, that's a magical moment.
So we broke our race down into quarters, knowing from what everybody had said that the sort of third quarter was the meat. We wanted to be able to get out ahead and get our own breathing room, and then we could do things, work the gates together, and we could switch to make sure we were on track with navigation, and we could make sure, you know, we could get in our groove. And so that first quarter, we really wanted to put in a pretty hard effort. Sustainable, recoverable, but pretty hard. Cover ground, make it efficient, but not blast anything.
It's always more fun with somebody. You get to share in the memories, and then you can be like, oh man, you remember that time when X, Y, or Z happened, and you like, you know, you were really sucking and I had to carry you through.
So Thomas and I are both kind of Appalachian knuckleheads. we're both the kind of rider that I think, like, we love challenging experiences and adventures. We love to compete. We love the medium of the bike that sort of speaks to you and opens doors and becomes this common language. We both race a ton in the Pisgah Forest of North Carolina. It's close to me in Virginia and him in Georgia. It's kind of a central point. And I think in 2018 we started racing as pairs, or even just traveling and bunking up together places.
I'm Emily Harefield. I'm the wife of Gordon Wadsworth and friend to Thomas Turner. You know, Gordon would reach out to Thomas and be like, hey, we're gonna do this race. Do you wanna come? Do you wanna split a house? Do you wanna come stay at our house? Do you wanna, you know, go do these things? And Thomas also did the same.
You know, not only could Thomas and I like jump on the bikes and ride and be on the same page, but off of the bikes, we were just good at communicating. We were able to say, you know, hey, I want to do this thing, but it's kind of it's a lot to pay for this thing, but I think it's worth it. And that was enough, you know, or whatever. The circumstance where Thomas was, you know, just a good communicator and willing to level with you and understand and listen to your side of things is what allowed, I think, us to build a foundation of a very good friendship.
Gordon and Thomas are really good travel partners, and they are comparable in how they view racing and people and life and the world, and we like to do things with Thomas. So more adventures have been had because of that.
Yeah, it's just fun to have memories that you can share when you're, you know, looking back on stuff like that, as opposed to if you just do it by yourself. You don't really get to share the experience with somebody else or share an amazing place, you know. We were over in Tanzania, so we went to go to Zanzibar and hang out and go scuba diving or snorkeling, and then paddleboarding and snorkeling and hanging out on the beach and stuff. And
I think life, adventures, competition is better with a friend because the sum of 1 + 1 is greater than 2.
So you're always working together and trying to maximize one person's strengths, and in doing so cover up somebody else's weaknesses. You know, you're gonna try and carry them when they're weak, and then vice versa. When they're weak, you're gonna try and help them. So,
you know, you pick up on stuff. Oh, did you see that? Like, no, I wouldn't have seen that by myself. You know, like, as fundamental as that, and as abstract as just having that added layer of human experience into this very impactful, incredible riding and racing experience.
I don't think I've ever found two guys who want to race their bikes more, but equally want to just find daily adventure. They just want to find new places to see and to have an adventure, and later be able to sit around and talk about it.
When it came to doing the Maah Daah Hey, I reached out to him and was like, hey, here's this harebrained adventure. Like, we have this opportunity to go do it. You want to go do it? You know, and that was like, I'm in. I don't know anything about it. I don't have any details, but like, let's do it.
Because we had radios, I kind of knew when they were coming, but I still didn't have a super long time to like get the shot set and then hit record. But the way sound travels out there, like I'm able to hear them coming before I actually see them coming. I can hear them singing as they're coming like over one of the little valleys, and then all of a sudden they pop up and they're like a quarter mile from me.
Aid stations can be so chaotic, but with these two, it was calm chaos. It was just super clear communication and getting what they needed, and then they were gone.
I love to race a bike, but I wouldn't say I'm a competitive person. I am someone who loves to go fast, you know, and go fast in new places and solve those puzzles and challenge myself. So,
you know, Gordon is a really, really strong rider. I mean, you look at his track record. I mean, the man is like, I think he was labeled the fastest single speeder in the world at one point. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing on a bike. Also couldn't be a nicer guy.
I don't come from a family of bike racers at all. My people belong in the North Sea. We're, fair-skinned for sure. But no, I found riding with my older sister. Kind of got into it in college, and I had the chance to ride one of her bikes. And the change between bike as toy and bike as machine that's incredibly fast and efficient, like seeing that distinction to me set me off to wanting to do more of that. Yeah, I would say that arc has always included challenge. It's always included innovation in like where I go race, what I want to do. It started with a lot of 100-milers. I have 5 National Ultra Endurance Championship titles. It's a ton of single speed in my background. Like I love that bike and the way that it engages with terrain and is a sort of crucible for hard things being harder, and in some way that makes them, to me, more manageable. That is kind of the arc of where I'm at now. It's about finding incredible adventures, really exciting racing, really exciting experiences that people want to share.
What was Gordon's level of excitement going into the Maah Daah Hey this year? Like, how did he feel about that?
Gordon's talked about that race for a long time. Years. He has said, I really would love to go do this race, but the logistics are problematic and I just don't know that I have the bandwidth or the ability to kind of negotiate all of that. When he spoke to the promoter, Nick, about it, he suggested bringing Thomas. And so when Nick said, yeah, bring Thomas, Gordon just, 100 folds was the intensification of that excitement.
These cool adventures, these amazing sort of lifetime rides are what I want now. And I want to be able to build as much fitness as I can so that those are they're always available. There's never a question of can I do it? It's how will it go? Yeah, that's me, man.
It's all he talked about and all his training led up to that point.
When you're out there for 8, 9, 10, 12 hours, however long it's going to take you to finish the 106 miles, time goes faster when you just have a friend. Your morale is higher. You don't really think about the dark times as much. It becomes more of a ride with a buddy, which is why even last year when Tyler and I were riding, it kind of helped the miles go by and the time go by. You'll actually, something that no one ever talks about is, you'll be on the middle of the ride and your buddy will take a drink of water and you're like, whoa, I haven't drank water in like the last 20 minutes, and it's just sort of this rhythm you kind of settle in with each other on. But it is incredibly important to have to have somebody riding with you.
You know, one of my best friends I've met on the starting line of the Maah Daah Hey the very first time I did it. And I'm not sure what makes it that way. It's maybe something that's inexplainable, but anybody who is a cyclist, is a mountain biker, has experienced that kind of bond that takes place of your human want to live and want to be alive, and you're enjoying this with another person who also loves that feeling of kind of pushing themselves and being alive, and you're alive in this moment together. It's just something special, and it's indescribable. I don't think you can really put it into words. You can't fake it, you can't get it from sitting on a sideline watching a game. I truly think that you can only get that kind of feeling from experiencing activity together.
For me, there's something about being on a bike that I love because it sheds these walls that we kind of put up around. We kind of build up these things in a social setting, and something about being on the bike, for me, that's all gone. And you are just open and vulnerable. And when you can share that experience with friends that are your close friends, that bond grows to be extremely strong.
From the first time reaching out to Gordon and talking about having him come out for 2024, he was like, I'll talk to Thomas, the Hitman Turner.
When did you meet Thomas Turner?
Oh, I don't know. I think I met Thomas probably ages and ages ago.
I remember being out at the aid stations, like helping Gordon, assisting him, and I saw this, just in front of Gordon was this very memorable human being with this monster red beard who was just hammering on the pedals and frothing at the mouth. And I remember thinking, I don't know who that is, but he's a wild man. And it turned out that it was Thomas Turner.
I want to say the first time we really interacted together was probably early aughts at the Pisgah stage race. The Pisgah Forest in North Carolina is a place where the toughest, hardiest, most durable bike racers are drawn to. The mountain brings everybody to failure, and there it's absolutely truer than nowhere else, you know? Seeing the way that he approaches racing and life, he's very easy to get along with. He's very easy to form a good friendship with. And he's also enormously willing to help. You know, anything I can do to help is you know, something that he's known for. Like you know, you'd be trying to rebuild your whatever in the parking lot of wherever, and Thomas will sidle over and, you know, like, what you got going on? You need a hand with that? You know, like he loves a puzzle and he loves to help.
I got into cycling just through my parents kind of introducing me into it. They got me a bike. I lived on a farm, still live on a farm, but I would ride the bike over to my neighbor's house or anywhere I wanted to get to, basically. I had to ride a bike. We didn't have a lot of stuff that was close by, and it was, for me, I could go off exploring. So I would take the bike, you know, all around, and that was like my way to escape and get out and do stuff. And I tried other sports too as a youth, baseball and soccer, and I always found them so boring because you're just standing there. And it didn't really click with me because I really want to be engaged in doing something the whole time. But with the cycling, you know, you're not standing still ever. I mean, you're focused the whole time and you're doing stuff. And then the sense of adventure and getting to travel, that really fed into it. It's been a fantastic experience, you know, getting to travel and race and see so many different cultures and people and places. It's been really unique.
I think there's a deeper person there who is himself enormously hardy and enormously centered and balanced, and it makes for hella good racing with Thomas. You know, you can rely on him, and you can push him and know that, you know, he's gonna stick to it and he's gonna get through it without any griping.
As we were finishing up one day in Tennessee, there were some locals with crawlers and they had gotten stuck on a ridge line. And Thomas immediately climbed up the ridge line and started asking if they needed help and giving advice on what they should do. He will literally offer help to anyone, but where I've seen it most evident is when he's with the people that he cares about.
When we raced the 4 Islands in Croatia together, which is an epic series race, it's a tough, technical 5-day stage race, I came into that with an existing injury. And I had told Thomas that. We had this on the books for like 2 years because we had to cancel it 1 year. And I came into it with a knee injury that haunted me off and on all week. I would have a really good day and then I would have a really bad day. And those bad days, it was just watching the competition right away. And Thomas stuck with me. And I don't know that he necessarily because injuries, especially on the bike, they're not always acute, and the overuse injuries especially, you look fine, and that can be the most frustrating. But this was an overuse injury, and it was one that had dogged me for years, and had shown back up not long before the race, and so I had some fitness. Like, I'd managed to cobble it together, but this injury showed up, like 2 or 3 out of 5 days. I think for sure 2 out of 5 days, and it was just like, other race partners would have been gone and see ya, and I'm here to race my bike and that's what I'm gonna do. But Thomas understood that I was not in a great place with it, and he stuck by me and he did whatever he could to help, even not necessarily understanding what was going on. Like, he was just there to help in whatever capacity he could to get us to the finish line. And that's a characteristic of somebody that I want to do things with. They're gonna be available to me when I need them most, and not the opposite.
Is that what inspires you about him? That just he's really dependable, or is there other attributes about him that inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, one, he's fun. He's fun to be around. He's got a childlike heart and energy, and will find a lot of joy in the smallest things sometimes, and that's really fun. Like, I try and emulate that too. And when we're together, we fall into that groove so smoothly, and it's just the way we are.
Did we just walk up the plank? Yeah. Hang on, you guys are the nicest pirates I've ever met.
Once you're across the river and arrived at aid station 2, you are roughly at the halfway point, but the race is just getting started, so you'd better make sure you haven't cooked yourself already, and you'd better make sure you have everything you need for what's in front of you, especially in regards to whoever's helping you that day.
I really wanted Gordon to be successful, and I wanted Thomas to be successful, and so kind of gave him all the information I could.
Support was one thing that he mentioned. He was like, "Who's doing your sag?" And I was like, we were just gonna throw some bottles in a bag and send them on and do the way we always do, and that kind of thing. And he was kind of like, yeah, okay, like, if you do that, good luck,
Who knows all the back roads, who can wrench on a bike or lube a chain or, do whatever is needed there. And it hit me. It was like, my dad would be the perfect sag guy for Gordon and Thomas.
My name is Lino Ibarra, and I was the sag guy for the pros, Gordon and Thomas, for the 2024 Maah Daah Hey 100. I'm more familiar, I think, myself with the back roads of the Maah Daah Hey, from point A to point all the way down to, let's say, from CCC all the way down to Medora. The back roads I know a lot better than I do the whole Maah Daah Hey.
Yeah, we've slowly been learning all the gravel roads together, and then he's sagged me on, a ton of my adventures out here. I'd say, Dad, you know, meet me here, point to a spot on the map, and he would look at it and just be like, Nick, I don't know how to find that, you know? And I'd be like, okay, let's map it out. Like, you turn here, turn here, turn here. And there were times when we'd get to the spot and we'd miss each other, you know? And then we just learned through trial and error with lots of errors. And we just like eventually together we learned the trail and the back roads. He is like one of the most qualified individuals to be a seg driver out in the Badlands.
Really have never sagged for anybody in a race other than sag for Nick when he's doing marking the trail prior to the races. So these guys were pretty low key. Nick and I met them at the airport. So we picked them up, took them to the hotel. Next day they just kind of chilled out at the hotel until the pre-race meeting. And that's where we got together, Gordon and Thomas, and we kind of figured things out, how we're gonna do checkpoints and aid stations and kind of stuff like that. So these guys weren't very, like, we gotta have this, this, and that. They were pretty low key. We'll have this for you. I told them I'll have a cooler. We'll put the stuff in the cooler. I'll have plenty of water for you guys.
Yeah, when we found out that we were going to have Leno supporting us, I think we met that with gratitude.
Coming into the race, we were envisioning like running drop bags.
I do not think we understood at the time the gravity of that. Like, again, Thomas and I, because of our backgrounds, it was kind of like, yeah, okay, we'll handle it, whatever it looks like. You know, we've done 100-mile backcountry mountain bike rides with water filters and snacks, like, and that's what you got. So we weren't necessarily intimidated by the possibility of that. However, as we got going throughout the day, and certainly in retrospect, I think the gravity of how much that meant came home to roost.
After you cross the river and you get into the Elkhorn section, you have 50 miles under your belt at that point. And even though those 50 miles are maybe regarded as easier than the mile 50 to 75, you've put in 4.5 hours of riding about at that point. And that's no joke.
Everybody who I've talked to about this trail, they know that the hardest part for me has always been what I call the third section of trail. But what that means is, you know, we cross the river, we come up, we go into aid station 2. Between aid station 2 and Elkhorn, this is a stretch that I don't know if it's mental, I don't know if it's because of the trail, I don't know if it's, you know, the temperature starts to heat up, or probably a combination of all of those things.
Right when you head south from aid station 2, you go into what we call the Valley of Death. And you climb up onto a unassuming plateau. It's like the flattest mile of the whole trail. It's just straight prairie right through just a smooth pasture. And then you drop down into this Death Valley, and it's like a terrible descent, and then you're down, and it's just like where the sun just bakes down in this valley. And then you've got the most like technical eroded climb out of Death Valley and drop down into where Teddy Roosevelt ran around in his days here at the Elkhorn Ranch unit and before Elkhorn checkpoint. And it's just rough, rugged Badlands.
Everyone hears about the third section of trail and how it undoes so many men and women, and they might not take it seriously. And then when racers hear people talk about the Valley of Death and the mythology surrounding where Teddy Roosevelt lived, they might just roll their eyes, but people need to remember that the lore of this area has existed for hundreds of years. Roosevelt's neighbors in the Badlands were ranchers, cowboys, frontier settlers who held a wide variety of beliefs about the land and life in general. Local ranchers, for instance, believed that certain areas near Elkhorn Ranch were bad luck, and some avoided specific valleys because animals frequently went missing in those areas. Roosevelt came from a scientific background in the East Coast, and he was often amused by his neighbors' beliefs, but he also recognized the harshness of the landscape. And Roosevelt wrote in his journals about the profound silence and the desolate beauty of the area, describing how haunting and eerie it often felt. These are the places that the people who dwelled in this land hundreds of years ago looked at Teddy Roosevelt and said, "I wouldn't go in there, because strange things happen when we do."
It just gets so difficult, and even though I know it's coming every year, I do whatever I can to try to stave that off. And for some reason, that it's more times than not, it has taken it out of me and has affected me in a pretty adverse way. It's something I talked to Gordon about. I specifically mentioned that. You know, I was like, hey, even you can look at maps, you can do whatever, you can look at Strava segments. I just need you to know that that section of trail is very, very difficult, and there's a lot of reasons why. But I think they all kind of it comes to a head there, you know. And the few times I've been able to make it through there feeling okay are the days I've had the most successful days ever.
You guys get that pizza order?
Yep.
You want that tailwind, man?
No, next one probably.
Okay. Wow. Does that work okay?
Is that okay?
I didn't tie
Heck
it.
yeah.
Okay, man.
That's a Big Mac.
Let me know if you want to know.
Yeehaw, long doggy.
What's that? All right, man.
What's the numbers, guys?
290.
298.
8675309.
Have fun, guys.
Go ahead, Levi.
Levi, they are through the check. They are now 2 minutes up on the record.
We wanted to be there. We wanted to be in spitting distance, if we could, of the record. And we go into that section like a little bit wary. We didn't want to overcook, but also like I was feeling really good. The day had been going very smoothly. Like we had proven, I think to ourselves, like we can ride this stuff really well. We can solve these puzzles.
So this is our run sheet, one of our run sheets that we had. We had a set of 3 of them that kind of walked each of us through the day and our jobs and who was driving and riding with each other. And they're down to the minute based on Kelly Magelky's record-breaking race from a few years prior. And so like we're counting on them as they come through these times, like literally down to the minute where it says that at this time they're coming through at 10:22 a.m. And the whole day is drive really fast to a spot, run out to your spot, set tripod, set cameras, and then wait. And at Checky, we waited, and then we waited, and then we waited.
I hadn't looked at my phone all day because we just hadn't had time. And at that moment, I got a text from Kelly Magelky. When you sit and wonder why someone is late in a place like this, your imagination can run away pretty quickly.
as you climb out of that gravel road where we were just booking it, it may not be the longest climb on course, but it feels like it, because you just never have this great sight line on where the top is. And for most of the Maah Daah Hey trail, you have a pretty good sight line on like, I'm going over there, like that's the top. But that section is a little bit sneaky. And then you have a couple of like pretty steep pitches. And I looked back at one of them and Thomas was just, you know, head down, just like flagging. And Thomas is pretty like, he's got good body language on the bike. He's active and you can detect like what he's feeling like pretty well. And that was a shift in body language from how he had looked all day. And it was a little bit like, uh-oh. Like, oh boy, is the third quarter really gonna wreck it?
But for me, the heat was what cooked me a goose. I was frazzled there. That really put me in the hurt locker.
He was just like, man, I don't know why I'm feeling so bad. Like, I don't know, like, all I want is a big glass of cold water. All I want is like, just to get through this thing. And, you know, he does it in his Thomas way, like, man, I'm a hurting pup.
It was just like lights out. The drink mixes were super unappealing. I had no taste. I mean, my pack was still full, had full bottles, but I just couldn't stomach drink anything. And so I really had to rely more heavily on just water.
And at that point, I was feeling honestly really good. Like, I had felt like ready to tackle that section. I was super on top of nutrition. Like, physiologically, I felt great. I was handling the bike pretty well. Like, just all the lights were green.
You come to a realization like, oh man, I'm struggling here and I'm dragging us down. So I just told him, I was like, you know, you're more than welcome to hammer and go at your own pace. You don't need to sit back here with me if I'm slowing you up.
You know, Thomas and I committed to doing this thing together as adult big boy bike racers. Like, let's get real, there's one winner. But we also like came into it really treating it like an adventure together. I really did kind of watch that thing vaporize. And that was hard. Like, that was hard to be within fighting distance of a thing, but also to recognize, okay, that's gonna cost something. Like, if I press the pedal now, even feeling great, like, it's gonna cost me something. It's gonna cost time, because I'm gonna be handling gates by myself, I'm gonna be navigating by myself. All these shared responsibilities are now fully on me, which I can handle. I've shown that I can handle that in the past. But it was as much about, what's that gonna mean to Thomas? Like, what's that gonna feel like for him? What's that gonna feel like at the finish line? Like, how is that gonna, what are the ripples of that sort of behavior beyond just hands in the air, first across the line? And to me, paying back Thomas for the kindness that he'd shown me other times in our race partnerships, and being that table turning so that I then was the supporting character.
Yeah, it was a great friendship, you know, because, you know, it's definitely nice to have somebody stay back. And like I said, he could have easily probably gone off and left me for sure, and had a really good chance. And we were on pace.
Thomas back to life here.
Hey guys, keep it up.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks right now.
Yep.
together or not, these guys still had 41 miles in front of them. And at this point, they weren't even halfway through this mythical third section.
It's still North Dakota Badlands, but it's like, for some reason, it just seems like it's just intervals, like it's just up, down, up, down, up, down. And every time you top out on a ridge, you look out and it's just endless Badlands. You know, you don't see the road crossing, you don't see a checkpoint, you don't see the aid station off in the distance. It looks like you're just heading into endless Badlands.
The only constant in life is change, but especially the only constant in bike racing is change. You know, and that, like, you lean into that a little bit sometimes in ultra. You know, you give yourself patience because you know it's gonna turn around. You do what you can to turn it around. And that was kind of the place that we found ourselves. Like, what do we gotta do to turn this around? Knowing that we were in the hardest part of the race, that it was not going to be getting easier. You know, so you have all these things that like are stacked up against you, and it's like you're facing a wall and you just got shorter.
Section 3 is a true slog. In the first half of the race, the checkpoints and aid stations are roughly every 10.5 miles. But in Section 3, it is so hard that you'll find checkpoints 4.7, 4.2, and 3.4 miles apart, because the need for help is so great through this section.
I don't know that I gave enough credit to that with respect to the Maah Daah Hey, because there are a lot of people that go do some hard things and they can get through it by virtue of support. So there's this false message sometimes in endurance athletics of like, what you need.
Super helpful to have them there, because you know, okay, I just got to go a little bit further, and we're gonna have somebody here that's encouraging. You're gonna have, my biggest thing was just water. Water at that point was just having the best thing for me. But yeah, it was nice to have cold water.
Like, it was really humanizing. One, to make contact with Leno, because he is one of the kindest, gentlest, most practical, effective people.
But when they got there, just made sure that they were getting what they needed, cool them down through, you know, Thomas took a gallon of water, poured it on his head, and you know, they got what they needed.
And he was our rock every single time, to be able to see him and get an ice pack when it's 105 degrees, or get a fresh bottle that was cold. Like, nothing was cold in our world. I gave Thomas, Thomas is an enormously tough guy. And so I gave him time. I spent a little bit of time right on his wheel. Spent a little bit of time a little further up the road to see if a rabbit might kind of help kick him into gear.
What is he like when you're out on the trail together?
Super talkative. He won't shut up sometimes, and you're just like, oh man, I'm hurting. I just got to be in my own place, you know. So maybe you drift back a little bit, or go forward, you know, and trying to. I got to think.
That third section is where a lot of people fall apart. And if you can just make it to Wanigan, you know, then the last 27 miles of the race, that's, you know, it kind of smooths out and turns into still Badlands, but a little more rolly and a little less jagged.
You're climbing, and I've ridden that trail so many times, and even still, I get confused on which is the last climb up, which is the last little bluff that you're coming over to get into Wanigan. And when you finally do kind of crest that last one, and there's that bench there, and you can start to see down into it, it just feels like it opens up. It feels like the whole world kind of opens up, and you see your crew there, you see the tents there, people cheering. You know, you're gonna get to see some people, maybe cool down if it's a hot day, and kind of just re-energize yourself, get a little more stoke in the fire, and take on that last 25 miles.
But all things in their time. You know? Sure. Hey, yay! I tell you what. You wish this was the finish line?
Killing it, man. Two tailwinds.
What does Bart Simpson say? Are we there yet?
Small water.
What do you think, Gordon? You ready?
Hey, buddy.
We're going back up where we came down?
Back up and take a right. Get up, man. Good work.
Hey, you got some cookies?
We do.
Yeah, that good. Right side.
Right size. Nice job.
Y'all later. Thank you guys, Gordon. You killed us. Appreciate y'all big time. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, we do.
What a goofball. I know.
Hey, Thomas, they got cookies down here.
You guys have been singing the whole way and having a good time.
Once they were through aid 3, it was apparent that Thomas was coming back around. His body language was positive again, and they both looked pretty good. But you never escape the realities of the Maah Daah Hey Trail, no matter how good your day is going. When you're in the Badlands, things can go sideways quickly, sometimes completely out of your control, and it can have a heavy impact on the rest of your race.
As he started to come out of that, like started to feel himself a little bit, like I started to feel mortality a little bit. Like I started to be the one that was like, oh no, I gotta stop taking care of him. Like it's Gordon time a little bit. Like I gotta get back to the trend of taking care of myself.
My name is Matt Haugen, and I got onto this project, I think primarily because my brother has worked with him on these projects before, and then my friendship with John. He knew that while not a filmographer, I could be depended on to get things done, to help make sure that the project ran smoothly, and to stay on top of unforeseen developments through the course of a day.
So we were at checkpoint H, which is the checkpoint before I had Highway 10, and they came in, they got what they needed. I was parked right next to the trail. They seemed in good spirits, and they were on their way. So one of the photographer crews came up to me and said, hey man, on the way out of here, looks like a tanker truck just turned over, and it's like, we can't go that route.
A text comes through from John when I'm standing at the truck.
You guys might run into trouble coming back in. There's an overturned water truck. They let us through, but you need an alternative route.
And I'm thinking, that's not good, because we got to get to checkpoint I, as fast as we can.
Thankfully, I had cell service.
He calls me and he says, any idea what we're gonna do about this? And I said, you're gonna have to figure this out. And I hung up. And I think he called John right after that as well.
I told him he'd have to figure it out, and I hung up because in my mind, I knew Lino was there, and Lino knows the back roads so well, and he should be able to help guide them out.
He was chosen to be their SAG driver. That's great. He probably knows his way around out here. He probably just knows where to go.
And I should know this better than him. I don't know if he's ever been there, but he's looking on his phone. He goes, I think we can go west and go that way. And I'm like, I'm following you.
And I was like, well, shoot, I was really hoping you were going to tell me where to go.
We take the alternate route. We get to one point where it's a right on more of a main gravel road and a left/straight that's minimum maintenance, local vehicles only, I think is what it said on the sign. And Matthew kind of looks to the right and he looks to the left and he's like, which one? I said, we got to go to the left.
We're hitting roads there's signs that these roads are not maintained. at your own risk, basically.
I don't think that it was even necessarily a road. I think we might have just been following the path where the water flowed during the last rainstorm.
I don't know if we're gonna get to where we need to get going here.
But the closer we got, the more we realized we are really gonna be cutting it close here.
And we still continue on, and we finally get to where we can access the interstate. And I'm like, good. So we get on the interstate, and I'm cruising, we're heading, and all of a sudden I look to my right on the south side of the interstate, and here I see Gordon and I see Thomas on the Maah Daah Hey. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
I'm at Check Eye, way up on a butte, and I can see a mile down that road, the road they should be coming on, but there is no truck coming. There's nothing. And suddenly I hear Gordon and Thomas coming on the trail, and I have to turn and film. And all I can think in my head is, oh boy, we might have really messed this up.
As I'm driving to I-checkpoint, I see those guys coming down the butte, heading towards checkpoint. I'm like, I gotta get there. I gotta get these guys what they need to finish up the last 7 miles to the finish line.
And as he's coming to a stop and he sprints out to go open the back of his pickup, Gordon and Thomas are riding up to the back of his pickup to get whatever supplies they need at their last check before they're ready to go finish the race.
He's everywhere. He's like a diesel car, man. Everywhere I want to be.
Here, yeah. A little bit of water just for a couple, maybe 7 miles.
Yeah.
Good, boys. Here's the
Be
finish
dope.
line.
I'll be about a finish line.
See you in a couple minutes.
Yeah, right?
Good job, dude.
Great. Thank you, Leno. Strong work. Holy cow.
And they're gone. And I'm like, we made that by the skin of our teeth.
So when we hit the final checkpoint, I don't know that there was this conversation of like, all right, Buster, it's on, you know, what you got? Like, I don't think that was it at all. But it was like, the mission is accomplished. Like, we've gotten through this thing together. Like, we were good to each other. Again, I think the sum of 1 + 1 is greater than 2. When you agree to that level to compete and to share that kind of adventure and experience, even knowing that it might come down to a competition between you two at some phase. It has to. That's the rule. There is no winner and vice winner. You know, it's the way of it, and you know you're signing up for that. But I think that by committing to another person, you do create an environment where you get more out of it than you would by yourself. But it was like, I'm a giver, you know, I'm a giver a little bit, man.
I wasn't in any shape to counter anything, or it was just like, it was more of Gordon was able to go ride at his own pace and enjoy the rest of the race at whatever speed he wanted to go at.
was not done. The effort was not complete until Thomas also came across the line.
It felt amazing to finally have all that hard work pay off, and you cross under the finish and you're just like, all right, well, we did this. Somehow, one way or another, we muddled our way through it.
When he came across the line, it was done. It was mission accomplished. And we shared that moment because we'd shared every other moment to that point. And that was really special. It was really cool.
So part of me, texting JP about this, and I did feel very relieved that they were within just a couple minutes, maybe ahead of my time for a while. But to me, I think that was just this validation of this is a very difficult trail. I think Gordon and Thomas being up there and knowing how strong they are validated that this is a real backcountry mountain bike race.
It is a gem of an experience. It's a fantastic bike race. It's an incredible route. It is a gem of an adventure.
There's sometimes when you need to go out alone and test yourself to see how you can handle certain situations and how capable you are. But then there's so many times when there's just, it's a different experience when you're with a buddy.
It's always better to share a success or a failure with somebody else. The burden is always better shared together.
When you have somebody that you can share experiences with in life, the good and the bad and the ugly, and know that, we're not alone in this, I think that means everything.
Races like the Maah Daah Hey, I think that they have that galvanizing effect. They have that sort of crucible effect where you've seen each other at your best and at your worst a little bit, and you've been willing to stay engaged no matter what that looked like. You've been willing to stay committed to that person and a shared cause no matter how good or how ugly that looked.
That other person saw you in the depths of your struggle or in the heights of your success. And so you don't have to hide that. And I think that's the beauty of racing together, is that you can't hide it. You can't hide the lows and the highs, and there's no better feeling than having somebody who sees you in those moments. And the connection that you have through that is beyond any connection.
When you leave things better than you found them, and you interact with people in a way that's meaningful and sincere, the net positive outweighs anything else. You've given so much and gotten so much more than if you just tried to get.
And I'm just glad I was just a little part of that. I'm glad that I got to know them. They got to know me just a little bit. And there was a connection there that we're friends forever.
It's hard to find people like that. And it's hard to find people like that are willing to reinvest in you and share with you and be up for any adventure.
People will have tighter bonds because you're both working through a struggle, and you're helping and encouraging one another the whole time. And it shows a loyalty where you can work together and you're looking out for each other's best interest.
Events like the Maah Daah Hey, again, you can't trust the trail. You can't rely on the environment. You have to be able to put your faith in something. And if it's another person, I think it's good for us. And I think at a monkey brain level, I think we are wired for that too. We need to need each other. And the longer you refuse that because you're a big tough dude, or because you're, a lone wolf mentality or whatever, the longer you refuse that, I think the longer you like the less rich your life is.
I don't know Thomas very well, but I know Gordon a bit, and Gordon could not be a nicer guy. And I think this sport breeds a lot of that. You know, I know so many women and men that are bike racers who, first and foremost, are just really good people. And Gordon is certainly one of them. And it was fun to cheer him on. It was fun to communicate with him before the race and congratulate him on the win afterward. You know, something tells me he'll be back.
I won't say we don't have a date with that record still. I think we got a little bit of a, I think we whetted our appetites for that. But to me, in that moment and still today, like, I do not regret riding that out with my friend and investing that time. You know, I think that's what matters to me.
Around, kind of looks like a proper rock garden in that folks' backyard.
I think that's a cemetery.
Oh, you think so?
Hey, hey.
No leaves on the ground, no shade in the creek bed, and I lay my fears down. They won't go nowhere. Love is an echo under the corn snow. Memories are dead road. They're lost in the world. But I'm not alone. I'm nobody's stranger. I have your ghost to carry me through the hot sky of summer, the long night of winter, the red light of autumn, the sting of the spring. But I'm not alone. I'm nobody's stranger. I have your